Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be objectively unpacking a seriously passionate, deeply existential manifesto today. The source text we're looking at tackles some pretty heavy stuff: digital fatigue, societal burnout, and that overwhelming pressure we all sometimes feel to just conform. It's a fascinating critique of modern life that really forces us to take a hard look in the mirror. We're going to break down the author's arguments step by step, mapping out their entire journey from a personal breaking point all the way to a radical call for digital and societal independence. Let's kick things off right where the author does, with this explosive opening cry, "I want to get out." I mean, it's short, it's totally visceral, and it instantly sets this raw, unfiltered tone for the entire piece. The author isn't just expressing, mild dissatisfaction with their day-to-day schedule. No, they are expressing a profound, suffocating need to escape the modern human condition entirely. This isn't just about changing up a morning routine, it is a full-on declaration of intellectual and spiritual claustrophobia. So, that brings us to part one, the call to liberate from the familiar. In this opening section, the text really digs into the author's intense internal breaking point and their desperate urge to escape the ordinary everyday routine. The familiar here isn't comforting to the author at all. Actually, it's portrayed as a trap. They want to create a brand new version of themselves, completely untethered from the constraints of time and physical place. They argue that our current societal metrics of success and value are just total illusions. In fact, they describe the pursuit of status as this comical race serving nothing but false pride. The source text goes as far as to say these competitive races exist only in the sick brains of this society. It's a really heavy critique, suggesting that the goals we spend our entire lives chasing are fundamentally empty. Now, to be clear, this isn't just about taking a quick mental health day. The author is super explicit here. They do not want a temporary vacation or some brief picnic just to recharge so they can get back to the same old grind. They want out, permanently. They want to leave this forced adaptation behind forever and literally never return. It's a complete and utter rejection of the status quo, born out of the realization that merely coping or adapting to what they see as a broken system is just no longer an option. Moving right along, we hit part two: honest alienation and fake belonging. This is where the struggle goes from being internal to interpersonal. We're faced with this painful, honestly fascinating choice. How much of ourselves do we compromise just to fit in? On one side, we have alienation with my true self, and on the other, faking my true self just to fit into an illusory world. The author firmly believes that choosing honest alienation is vastly superior to faking your identity for the sake of some fake belonging. The core argument here is that fitting into a society whose goals are essentially meaningless means you're faking your very existence for a purpose that isn't even real in the first place. Have you ever felt the pressure of those invisible social metrics? Because the text argues that participating in this illusory world is basically equivalent to a slow death. The author declares they would absolutely prefer to die alone rather than be surrounded by what they call pale, fake images of a society that has forgotten how to truly live. It's such a striking image, right? A society merely remembering to die slowly while drowning in overwhelming illusions. That brings us to part three, the marionette society. So if everything before was about the individual's desire to escape, we're now looking at the actual mechanics of the society they are trying to escape from. The author uses this incredible metaphor of the marionette. They describe society as a doll manipulated by unseen strings, these authoritarian tools that dictate our behavior. The author views the masses as a driven herd, completely stripped of individual will. According to the text, this herd doesn't distinguish truth from fiction anymore. They are simply terrified of objecting, terrified of rebelling, and most of all, they are terrified of being different. So how exactly does one become a marionette? Well, the author outlines this pretty grim societal brainwashing process. First, you enter what they call the mind-washing machine. Then, you are conditioned to do exactly what is expected of you. Next, and this is far more dangerous, you begin to truly believe exactly what is expected. And the final result? You guessed it, becoming a monotone, meaningless copy. The text beautifully contrasts this by arguing that God originally created humans as distinct, totally unique individuals, but this societal machine degrades us into distorted, identical figures stripped of our humanity. And finally, we arrive at part four, the digital age and dehumanization. Everything we've just talked about, the loss of individuality, the brainwashing, the fake belonging, it all finds its absolute ultimate expression in our modern, hyper-connected reality. The manifesto issues this deeply sarcastic welcome to our new era. Welcome, the author writes, to a world where critical thinking and using reason have been entirely abandoned by the herd, basically cast aside as something completely old-fashioned. It's a really biting observation on how quickly we consume and share information today without actually pausing to process, analyze, or apply our own logic to it. Then, the text delivers this final, really heavy blow. It claims that in our digital age, human souls have been entirely reduced. We are no longer vibrant beings of flesh, blood, and spirit. No, we've been stripped down to mere scattered numbers and codes across social media sites. It is a haunting summary of how engagement metrics, follower counts, and algorithmic data points have essentially replaced genuine human connection and individual worth. As we wrap up today's explainer, take a second to really reflect on the author's radical perspective. It's a challenging text, for sure, and it forces us to deeply evaluate our own daily routines. Are you making choices based on your true self, or are you operating on autopilot just to satisfy fake standards of success? Ask yourself where you stand in the balance between societal expectation and your own authentic individuality. Are you living freely, or are you just another code in the machine?